Tomorrow, the 2024 Fringe Festival begins. 25 venues across the city will host 150 shows produced by theater groups from around the world. One of the local offerings this year is a show that is being put on by Winnipeg's Bolero Dance Theatre. Called Picasso, Lovers and Muses, this show will give audience members a look behind the canvas and explore the notable women who influenced and inspired Picasso's art and life. The show will tell the story of Picasso and his muses by way of the dances, fans, and castanets of his native Spain, building up to his dramatic masterpiece titled Guernica. The show takes place at the Tom Henry Warehouse Theatre at 140 Rupert Avenue. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio, I am joined by the dancer who will be portraying Picasso, Pedro Aurelio, Kieren Lloyd, who will be portraying one of Picasso's muses, and singer Onna who will be helping to provide music for the production. Hello to you all. So great to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Hello.
Pedro, it's great to see you again. The last time we talked was during the lead up to Bolero Dance Theatre's production of Alice in Wonderland. How was that show and what were the audiences like?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was very colorful and we had lots of people that came to see the show and I think we had a very good response. They enjoyed the fact that it was a well-known story and the characters came alive and it was well received.
By kids as well, very family friendly.
Exactly, yes.
That's great. Okay, so here we are. We've got this Fringe Festival show, Picasso, Lovers and Muses. Aside from playing the role of Picasso, Pedro, you are also the artistic director for Bolero Dance Theatre. How did this show come about? Whose idea was it and who choreographed it and chose the music? Can you tell us about the production?
Goodness. I don't really know how it all started. Many years ago, about 15 years ago, we did a similar production of Picasso. It was different dances, it was different storyline, but such a larger than life character. It stays with you. And I was looking for an idea for the Fringe Festival that could incorporate a little bit of acting and a storyline, not just dance after dance after dance. And then it just kind of like made sense. Perhaps I was influenced because I got to this spring with work, I got to volunteer and go to Paris and Barcelona, and that just inspires you. And I was right there, and I went to the Picasso Museum, and that had a lot to do with it.
I'm going to ask this question of both Pedro and Kieren. Picasso, he had many lovers. We were talking about this off air. He was a massive philanderer. How is the show laid out? Do you focus on specific lovers? And how is the story told through dance?
So we start off with the earliest lover, whose name was Fernanda, and it kind of goes chronologically. And he had many, many, many women in his life who influenced him in various ways, so it's impossible to include all of them. And Pedro decided to focus on six. So we go kind of chronologically, starting with the earliest lover through the next 5 women in his life, up towards his death. And what's kind of harrowing is that of the 6 we portray in our show, really only one of them came out the other end of a relationship with Picasso whole and being okay. You know, there were some women that killed themselves, there were some that went insane, there were some that died. And of the 6, there's one who came out the other side of it being okay.
Yeah, and one of the things, when I was prepping for the interview, one of the things that kept coming up was he'd start up a relationship with somebody and then immediately start up a mistress relationship with another woman. It's just insane. Pedro, how is the story told through dance? Like, what is the interaction like?
So we have dancing, we have the singing, we have the live music of guitar and accordion for the scenes in Paris, but we also have spoken word. As Picasso, I'm almost a narrator of the story, telling what happened from moment to moment, but I also interact with the different dancers, and we have little mini dialogue scenes where the dancers become actresses, and we're all interacting and telling that story as well.
I just want to sort of bear down on some of the lovers that the show portrays. Many of his lovers were artists themselves. They were or dancers or models. He had a real thing for artistic women. Can you talk a little bit more in depth about the lovers that are talked about in the
So
show?
right after Fernanda, he married. His first wife was Olga, who was a Ukrainian ballet dancer with the Ballet Russe, and they stayed married. They separated. He then met Marie-Thérèse, who
Yeah.
was a model, and then
She was also an athlete. She was ahead of her time. In the late 1920s, 1930s, she was an avid cyclist. She did running. She did triathlons. And so she was not beautiful in the classic sense of what you would associate with that time period. She was not small. She was not delicate. She was strong. And he went up to her the first time that he saw her in public and said, "Oh, you have an interesting face. I'd like to paint you." And that's one of the lines in the show.
Yes.
So she was one of his lovers. However, she ended up killing herself shortly after he died.
But then there were the other ones, like Dora, who
Yes.
was a photographer, and a painter. There was Francoise, who was the painter that lived until last year. So definitely, he was, like you said, attracted to creative souls.
Yeah. Kieren, you play one of Picasso's muses?
Yes.
Who is it?
Marie-Thérèse. So she's the one that I just mentioned, who was a French model and athlete in the 1930s. And when I was reading up about her, the way that, and this could be totally incorrect, but it's just kind of the way I perceived her, was that she would have not really been accepted by society at that time. She was pushing the limits of what was acceptable for a woman, and Picasso sought her out and accepted her. So when I was thinking about this and chatting with my sister, who's in theater, she said, Picasso was probably the only one who validated her, and she glommed onto that. She cleaved onto him, and that was probably why she put up with so much of his crap for so long, because she wasn't accepted by society and because of who she was and what her passions were.
And they had a child together, Maya.
Are there any scenes in the show where there is a confrontation between, say, one of the wives and the mistresses? Is that portrayed at all?
Yes, there's one where Dora Maar and I kind of circle each other, and I say, "You asked us to fight for your love." So we are two kind of lionesses, to use another metaphor that comes back in the show, who kind of circle each other, and that's another thing that Picasso supposedly did say to Dora Maar and to Marie-Thérèse was, "Oh, well, you need to fight for your love and show me who loves me more." Wow.
Can you tell us about the painting? I hope I'm saying this right. Guernica.
Guernica.
Its significance in the show. Can you talk about that?
So Guernica is a representation of all the sadness, the sorrow, the anguish from war, all wars, specifically Guernica, because of what happened just before the civil war in Spain with the bombings of the town of Guernica. But he tried to convey all of the sorrow into that painting, and we bring that on stage with our moves, and we're all dressed in black, and the lighting is just showing us in shadows, and it's a very strong piece, which is almost percussive with the footwork and the hand clapping.
Yeah, and I actually watched a documentary about it, and it's like it's been significant throughout the 20th century. Whenever there's a war, Guernica very often will pop up as a piece of art.
It's funny because a few years after that, one of his later paintings was the Dove of Peace, and it was almost as a reply, an answer to that Guernica. And so we tried to emulate that in our production. At the end of the piece of the show, we end everybody in white, kind of signifying, there's hope in this world.
Onna, I'm going to turn it over to you. You're joined on stage by Philippe Mounier on guitar and Steve Kiz on accordion. Bolero dance theater makes use of flamenco as well as traditional Spanish dance. When I think of flamenco, I very often think of musicians reacting to what the dancers are doing. How much of that is there in the show?
A lot, like all the time. We are looking at them and we're feeding off the energy. Like in this case, the footwork of the dancers is another instrument completely, and their choreographies are adding meaning to what the words were saying, and the guitar, what the guitar is doing, and the accordion, and very much as in a band and in a big band, like the energy can grow beautifully in that collaboration.
Yeah. Did the three of you rehearse on your own at all, or was it always done with Bolero? Like, did you have to have the dancers in the room?
Well, with Philippe, many of the pieces we're doing are part of our repertoire. But every time when we perform with dancers, there are adaptations to be made, and every dancer is different. In this case, we mostly rehearse with Bolero every time. And I met Stephen. I'm working for the first time with Stephen and with Pedro and with all these dancers.
Yeah. Steve's a great accordion player and a great guy too. Yeah, he's great. Can you talk about the music? Like, what is it? How much is it flamenco? How much is it Spanish dance?
Half and half. Yeah, half and half. And there is even like some pieces, a couple of pieces that are more like on the outer edges, not as much neither flamenco or classical, but they all work beautifully to tell this story that Pedro wrote so beautifully.
It's going to be great. Picasso was one of the founders of the Cubist movement in Paris. He also had tendencies towards specific color themes. I'm thinking here, obviously, of the blue period and the rose periods. Are there any elements of that in the costumes and sets for the show? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, we have a little bit of an anecdote here. So for the blue period, he painted lots of harlequins, so I represent the harlequin for one dance. But for the rose period, he was in Paris, like you said, and we bring anything that was rose into that number. So we actually have Onna singing in French, La Bien Rose, with the accordion player, and the dancers are wearing costumes made with fabric that I purchased in Paris, around the corner from where Picasso had his first studio.
Oh, wow.
Goosebumps.
And the fabric has roses on it.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. And anything about the blue period? Or?
So I represent the blue period, and we do it with lights, and I speak about it too, but I dress as a harlequin, and it's all in blue.
Oh, that's going to be great. I'm going to ask the question of all three of you. What are you all looking forward to most about performing the show, Picasso, Lovers, and Muses? Onna, I'll start with you.
What I'm looking forward to the
most about performing it?
Oh, I just love being a part of a team. As you know, I'm usually like the lead person on stage when I do my music, and it's such a different experience to be part of a team. Where the focus is not on myself all the time. So I love that experience of the feeling of theater, right, and dance. And I am looking forward to the reaction in the audience. I feel it has such a deep cultural value to talk about these other aspects of the life of such an important figure as Picasso, and to know about it and to have make this relation between what his personal life was and the art he made. I think it invites for reflection, and I love that. I want to see people's faces.
Perfect. Kieren, how about you?
I think for me, it's the challenge of blending together acting with dance, because I have not done a whole lot of classical acting, I guess you could say, in my time, and the way that you project your voice and the way that you move and the way you enunciate and all of these things are different. And so I'm looking forward to, and I've really been enjoying the challenge of how do you act when you're not dancing? Because we all know how to act and portray a character when we're dancing, but when we're not dancing, there's a different way to do it. So I have really been enjoying that sort of challenge, and my sister, who studied theater in university, will be coming to see the show, and I'm looking forward to her critiques of my acting.
And Pedro, how about you?
For me, I'm hoping that the audience is able to get something out of this show. That once they are in there, that it's like they forget all of their troubles, and when they leave the show, that they are inspired, that they leave with inspiration for a better life, and just bringing a little bit of beauty into this world.
Perfect. Pedro, Kieren, and Onna, this has been so great to have you here talking about Bolero Dance Theater's show, Picasso, Lovers, and Muses. All the best in the run, and thanks so much for taking the time to stop by and talk to me today. This has been great.
Thank you very much.
For our Classic 107 listeners, Picasso, Lovers and Muses takes place at the Tom Hendry Warehouse Theatre at 140 Rupert Avenue. For more details on showtimes, visit the Bolero Dance Theatre Company's website at bolerodancetheatre.ca or go to classic107.com. I have embedded a direct link in the article that I've written about the show, and you can find the showtimes there. Onna, Pedro, and Kieren, thanks again.